Young American deserves to know that they are the heirs to an incredible history given to us by a legion of true American heroes. Individuals like George Washington Thomas, George Washington Thomas, George Washington Thomas Jefferson, Betsy Ross, Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, Harriet Tubman, Susan B. Anthony, Teddy Roosevelt, Generals George Patton, Douglas MacArthur. We could use them now. Yet we're also a people whose heroes lived not only in the past, but all around us today.
The absolute insanity and utter nonsense you just watched is brought to you by the leading Republican candidate to be president of the United States, Donald Trump. And obviously anybody that's ever picked up a history book knows about George Washington Thomas Jefferson. And is only one of, get this, 35 deranged videos the man has posted on his true social media site in the last several hours. Now, one would think that somebody facing so much incredibly serious legal trouble would be spending his time with his lawyers trying to figure out his defense. What's he actually talking about?
Wow, my interview with Tucker Carlson has turned out to be the single most watched video and interview in the history of the world, I guess. Such a great honor to have participated. 262 million views and counting, more than doubling the longtime reigning champ, the Oprah Winfrey interview of Michael Jackson.
Yep, the ex-president and now private citizen who's facing more legal trouble and time in prison than anybody on earth at the moment thinks we don't know the difference between views and impressions. Donald Trump's interview with Tucker Carlson was basically a car accident on the highway. You know, when you get there, you look for a couple seconds, but then you just keep rolling. And when this childish, weak-minded fascist bastard wasn't lying about views or the amount of support he has at the moment, he was lying about Joe Biden and trying to get you to believe that if somehow he's not saved, that this country is going to shit.
All of the fake news reporting that was done saying that crooked Joe Biden was fully cooperating, 100% always cooperating, with the special counsel, Robert Hur, concerning the thousands and thousands of documents that Joe took out of the White House. Well, that turned out to be a big lie. He wasn't cooperating at all. They can't even set up a meeting. Biden is being totally impossible. You can't deal with him. He's mentally gone anyway. But I'm not. But I'm not. They say a wall is medieval. Well, so is a wheel. A wheel is older than a wall. Our army manned the air. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. The kidney has a very special place in the heart. It's an incredible thing. You know what uranium is, right? It's a thing called nuclear weapons and other things. Like lots of things are done with uranium, including some bad things. And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? In the failing New York Times by an anonymous, really an anonymous, gutless coward. This is the very definition of totalitarianism. They sacrifice every day for the furniture and future of their children. Dickinson, Hologic, and Cephahide. God bless the United States.
I'm sorry, how rude of me. I believe you were talking about Joe Biden's mental acuity. Here he is once again lying to the faces of the American people, telling them that what he did somehow falls under the Presidential Records Act, lying about election interference, and again telling people if he's not saved by whatever means necessary, that this country will no longer exist.
And I come under the Presidential Records Act. Joe doesn't. It's all about election interference. This whole thing is about election interference. They're trying to steal the election by interfering with the campaign, and we are not going to let that happen. Because if we don't win in 2024, our country is done.
There's really not many things you could do to be more authoritarian, more fascistic, than to put your life in relevance and importance over that of the country you were presiding over at one point. For one man to think he can save us, for one man to think if he goes down, the country goes down with him, for one man to think he can alone save us from World War III, for one man to think he can sit down with Zelensky and Putin and get things squared away because he's just that strong and that important, is absolutely fascism. When the politicians you support become more than just politicians, and that of the Fuhrer and godlike people and people that you think you can follow to the ends of the earth, that's when you know you guys have lost the plot. And one would think that this far into Donald Trump's legal troubles, one of his lawyers would have gotten through to him to say, stop going after Jack Smith. Stop calling him names. Stop accusing him of crimes. It's not helping your case. But lucky for us, it doesn't seem like he's taken any of their advice. Here he is, once again, calling Jack Smith out, accusing him of leaking something that is fake, when we all know that you cannot leak a lie. You cannot leak something that is fake. If it's leaked, it's real. If it's fake, it's just fake or a lie. You gotta love the irony in the fact that Donald Trump is responsible for sending in the camera footage that could possibly put him behind bars.
Security tapes from Mar-a-Lago that evil and sinister prosecutor, deranged Jack Smith, leaked or otherwise stated were deleted or altered, were in fact not deleted or altered at all. In fact, I didn't even have to give them. These are my tapes. I gave them openly and freely. It was a fake story put out by these government thugs. That's what they are. They're government thugs. They're bad people. Those tapes were openly handed over without protest or litigation. I didn't have to do that. And then the deranged one, Jack Smith, makes me look as bad as possible by leaking fake stories about we altered the tapes. No, they now admit the tapes were not altered. The whole case is fake because I come under the Presidential Records Act. Biden and Mike Pence don't. They don't. It's a different kind of a problem. But Joe Biden has documents from when he was a senator. You can't do it. It's an impossible. These are classified documents. He's not allowed. But I have the Presidential Records Act, and it was developed and approved by Congress exactly for this purpose.
Bullshit. Is he seriously trying to get us to believe that the Presidential Records Act was only put into place so he could steal top secret classified documents and bring it back to Mar-a-Lago? There is absolutely nothing that comes out of this guy's mouth that isn't just straight up lies, fantasy, gaslighting, and shit that he makes up in his own head. Alright, but enough with that maniacal, narcissistic, petrified, wrinkled old beanbag in a wig. Let's take a look at his son, Don Jr., and see how he's been handling the news of his father's indictment. I've been told by people watching that he's been given some really good insight into all of these situations, so let's check in.
But I'm not the brightest.
He's mentally gone anyway.
Well, that's not very nice to say about your son. I mean, we all know he's got his issues, but I figured I'd get a little more out of him than that. Luckily, you guys both have the best words, and somehow he did manage to get a thought out. Unfortunately, that thought consisted of him trying to gaslight you into believing that his dad's mugshot would somehow become the most iconic photograph in world history. I mean history. Now I'm talking like Don Jr.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you've probably seen it. The whole world has seen it. This will likely become the most famous mugshot in history, if not, and again, we got a discount for Trump hyperbole, but I think honestly, perhaps one of the most iconic photographs, period. Not mugshots, just photographs, maybe in world history, certainly in American history.
He was living in the real world. I'm pretty sure he'd find it really pathetic that he has to say, after his dad's successful career, supposedly, after 4 years of being president in the United States of America, that his most iconic photograph came after his 4th arrest. And for the love of God, can somebody please show this man how air quotes work? He's literally quoting an article using air quotes. What an idiot.
The Atlantic is now screeching that the mugshot is a warning and that, quote, is a threat. I mean, you can't make this up, but they understand they made a mistake. The Fulton candidate, not the brightest. They wanted and they intended and they designed the mugshot to be an embarrassment. They want everyone to grovel. They want them to be afraid. It had the opposite of effect.
Yeah, settle down, Chief. It's literally the mugshot of a common, imbecilic, moronic, narcissistic criminal that used to hold some power in this country. The disgustingly brazen way these people bring up dangerous rhetoric is just absolutely insane to me. I'm not sure we've ever seen anything like it in politics before, But here he is once again bringing up the same thing Tucker Carlson and Greg Kelly brought up, trying to make it seem like Donald Trump's life is somehow in danger because he's being held accountable by the law, which in effect gives his supporters the green light to do whatever they deem necessary to protect his life.
About the radical left will make an attempt on the life. I assume you mean the life of Mother. Honestly, would anything surprise you at this point? I mean, Tucker brought it up, like, hey, are you worried? Like, they've tried canceling you every which way, shape, or form. That hasn't worked. Like, the only next step would be actual, trying to kill you. Like, would anything surprise you at this point?
Well, yeah, actually it would be, considering that right-wing extremism has been one of the most severe problems facing this country in the last several years. I'm sure you have the mental capacity to remember all the way back in 2019. I'm struggling to remember who the hell was president then, but I'm sure it'll come to me, when Congress found this and dedicated a bill to authorize domestic terrorism officers within the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the FBI to analyze and monitor domestic terrorist activity and require the federal government to take steps to prevent domestic terrorism. Congress finds the following. 1. White supremacists and other far right-wing extremists are the most significant domestic terrorism threat facing the United States. 2. On February 22, 2019, a Trump administration United States Department of Justice official wrote in a New York Times op-ed that white supremacy and far-right extremism are among the greatest domestic security threats facing the United States. Regrettably, over the last 25 years, law enforcement at both the federal and state levels have been slow to respond. Killings committed by individuals and groups associated with far-right extremist groups have risen significantly. 3. On an April 2017 Government Accountability Office report on the significant lethal threat posed by domestic violent extremists explained, quote, since September 2001, the number of fatalities caused by domestic violent extremists has ranged from 1 to 49 in a given year, end quote. The report noted, quote, fatalities resulting from attacks by far right-wing extremists have exceeded those caused by radical Islamist violent extremists in 10 of the 15 years, and were the same in 3 of the years since September 2001. Of the 85 violent extremist incidents that resulted in death since 2001, far right-wing violent extremist groups were responsible for 62 or 73%, while radical Islamist violent extremists were responsible for 27%. Basically what it's telling you is that you and your group of supporters are far more dangerous than any of the other groups that you guys denigrate on a daily basis. But what do you say we end this thing on a high note? Here's Don Jr. actually calling out his father for his terrible eating habits and actually telling us that he should actually be around 700 pounds because he eats so poorly. Not only that, but he tries to get his followers to believe that it was the Fulton County DA and the Fulton County office that actually put out his height and weight and not that it was self-reported, because Don Jr. actually says himself he would have taken the over.
I don't eat as much fast food as my father, but I certainly spend enough time. I try to avoid it because I honestly, if I ate like my dad, I'd be 700 pounds. Like, his metabolism is actually amazing because I know how he actually eats. And I saw even Fulton County DA put out 225. I was like, he must be working out, because I would have probably taken the over on that one. So for them to put that out, that's sort of hard to believe.
Yeah, you and everybody else on earth took the over, buddy. And it should be hard to believe because it's an outright lie that your father made up. But listen, all of these people, Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump, and the rest of his goddamn crew, are going to say and do and try everything they possibly can to stir up the crowd, to create chaos, because they think that's the only way that Donald Trump's ass could possibly be saved. Which is why every lie they tell, every video they put out should be called out. There's no way we can let any of this go. The lies they spew, the violence they want to happen, it's just not acceptable by any means. The best way to combat that, the best way to fight these people is to stay informed. The best way to do that is to stay right here at the MeidasTouch Network. So please click the like button, hit the subscribe button. It's free. Share this to your friends, your family, people that aren't really politically involved, because I think it's extremely important for everybody to see the nonsense coming out of these people's mouths. And don't forget, you can head over to MeidasTouch.com now and catch all the latest political news and anything MeidasTouch related. You can also head over to the MeidasTouch Patreon. You can also head over to my YouTube at Boston Brian and subscribe there. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm trying to build this in any way I know how. I think this is probably one of the most important times in this country's history. So if we could get this out, get the word out, stay at MeidasTouch, I think you'd be doing your country a great service, and I think it would go a long way to save our democracy. Until next time, I'm Boston Brian. Keep kicking ass.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.